A very pleasant evening to all of you. I'm delighted to welcome you all to the 22nd edition of World Sustainable Development Summit. My name is Neha Sharma. I am your MC for this session. I would like to thank everyone for being a part of this event and gracing it with your presence, both in person and in virtual mode. At the outset, on behalf of TERI, I would also like to thank our partners for this event, Federal Ministry for Environment, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety, Germany, and IKI, International Climate Initiative. We are all gathered here for discussing on nature-based solutions for sustainable development. Progress in environmental goals and integrated solutions are essential as the world struggles with the triple planetary crisis of pollution, climate change, and loss of wildlife. Nature-based solutions are being increasingly promoted to synergistically address climate change, biodiversity loss, and other societal challenges. In order to accomplish the Sustainable Development Goals, initiatives to mainstream NBS will be discussed in today's event, along with examples from Germany and India. Without further ado, I would like to introduce you all with a very line of speakers to chair this panel discussion. Mr. Subhash Chandra, Additional Director General, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India, and Ms. Ilka Hurd, Deputy Director General of International Policy, Federal Ministry for Environment, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety, Germany, who will be joining us virtually. The panelists of the session are Dr. Vinod B. Mathur, Vice Chairman, IPBS Bureau, and former Chairperson of National Biodiversity Authority of India. Mr. Shailesh Tembunikar, Principal Chief Conservator of Forest, Maharashtra Forest Department. Dr. J.V. Sharma, Program Director, Waterways and Natural Resources, TERI. Ms. Meshthid Kaspers, Head of Division, Federal Ministry for Environment, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety, Germany. Now, I invite the chair, Mr. Subhash Chandra, to take the proceedings.
It is a rare privilege for me to be here, and the topic, I think this is very exciting, and I see so many distinguished speakers as well as experts in the audience. So I will not speak at this juncture. I will try to summarize in the last on this nature-based solution for sustainable development. We have distinguished presenters, Dr. Vinod B. Mathur, Mr. Shailesh Tembunikar sir, Dr. J.V. Sharma sir, and Ms. Meshthid Kaspers. And I have the honor of having my co-chair who is attending from online to this panel. Welcome once again, Ilka Hurd ma'am, and we look forward for very exciting, interesting points to be made here, discussions, and very good outcome at the end of the 1.5 hour session. From the ministry, we have taken some initiative, like you might be aware that in the budget speech, 3 announcements have been made. Like one is green credit scheme, which is recognizing and incentivizing green actions by the industries, corporates. Another is program Mission Misty, which is for mangrove conservation, for sustainability of the Indian coast, very long 7,000 kilometer long coastal line. And another is Amrit Sarovar. So that is addressing the conservation of water bodies. And afforestation, as you all know, that India is among few countries which is not only committed theoretically, but it is actually practicing balance of development and conservation. As I think Conservation Act, Forest Conservation Act is unique example of our commitment to conservation. As for the benefit of our audience, I will mention that in India, over the years, we have diverted 11.38 lakh hectare of forest land, or we can say 1.4 million hectare land, forest land. And so far, we have been successful to regenerate 10.29 hectare. So our success is 90%. It is, as you all know, it is a work in progress. So wherever forest is diverted, we are quick to compensate the loss of forest, trees, and biodiversity. And there are very good examples of success in water and soil conservation. And this can be attributed to that nature is integral to our societal values, ethos, and cultural practices. So we don't see nature as a commodity. We, in fact, respect and work with nature. So the nature-based solution is not new to India. We basically, from any small vegetation to the largest living being, everyone is related to us in some way or the other. So conservation, something which is not new to us. Now I will invite my co-chair colleague, Ms. Ilka Hart, to address the gathering, and then we will have thematic presentation from Dr. Yogesh Gokhale ji. So Ms. Ilka Hart, kindly join.
Hello, so I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Subhash Chandra, and thank you also, dear colleagues, for your patience and these. I'm very sorry for the technical hiccups, and I know. Well, I was in Bangalore just 2 weeks ago, and I know how much importance the Indian colleagues attach to a timely beginning of all the sessions. So I'm sorry that we caused some delay here. I should have just stayed in India in order to be with you at the World Sustainable Development Summit. But I had to go back to Berlin, where it's very cold, but at least the sun is shining. So it's a great pleasure to be here today, even though just virtually, and to be working together so closely with TERI on the topic of nature-based solutions. For us, this topic lies at the intersection of many overlapping challenges, such as sustainable development, the loss of nature, and climate change. In 2015, as you all know, the world agreed on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development with a vision for the future we want and setting out 17 universal sustainable development goals that we want to reach by 2030. After quite some progress in the first years, unfortunately, the COVID pandemic and multiple crises have thrown us off track, we must say. Halfway through the agenda, we have to reinforce ambition and action to accelerate transformation needed to reach our common goals. This is why we are looking forward to the findings and recommendations of the second Global Sustainable Development Report. And we know that it will focus on synergies and entry points that bring best forward sustainable development. This scientific assessment will lay the ground for this year's SDG summit at the levels of heads of state. In our view, this summit is the prime opportunity to give a renewed political momentum, pushing for global implementation of the 2030 agenda to accelerate transformation towards a climate-friendly, nature-positive, and sustainable development. Instead of thinking in silos, we need to find integrated and holistic answers. The best solutions are those that work simultaneously against the major global environmental crises, as well as against the problems in the everyday lives of citizens. Therefore, I'm really glad that at today's event, we can dive deeper into the role of nature-based solutions and highlight the pivotal role nature plays for social, economic, and environmental sustainability development. NBS can contribute to the achievement of various SDGs, for example, SDG 15 and 14, life on land and sea, as well as SDG 13, climate change, but also SDG 6, water, and SDG 2, zero hunger, just to name a few, but you see how much interlinkage there is. And it's extremely important, in my view, that NBS deliver both for the planet as well as for the people. So I think we are on the same side here and have the same opinion as India does on this matter. For my ministry, this includes, for instance, focusing on the role of nature to simultaneously advance action on climate and biodiversity, and thereby tackling the twin crises of biodiversity loss and climate change in tandem. This is why last year, during the German G7 presidency, we put specific emphasis on the topic of nature-based solutions, and the G7 committed to scaling up across all sectors at home and abroad the implementation of nature-based solutions to benefit biodiversity and climate. And let me say this because we, at the first meeting of the Environmental and Climate Working Group of the Indian G20 presidency, I also saw what a big importance India and the G20 countries give to the topic of biodiversity, landscape restoration, but also nature-based solutions. So I really hope that today's discussions can also feed into the G20 work India is doing. And let me also say on this note that India is doing a great job with this G20 presidency. So I don't know if some of the colleagues who are in the room that I cannot see were there 2 weeks ago, but it was quite an impressive experience. And we do all know that the time to act is now. We're currently seeing increased pressure on our ecosystems, also caused by climate change. Last summer, for example, we saw unprecedented heat waves and droughts in Europe. This puts additional stress on ecosystems. This is why the German Environment Minister, Steffi Lemke, has made the topics of nature-based solutions as well as adaptation to climate change two of her top priorities. Domestically, we are working on a federal action plan on nature-based solutions for climate and biodiversity, and you will hear more about this later. This is why Mechthild Kasper is also in the call. I'm very pleased that we're working closely with our partners like India on these topics. And I believe that this event and this panel reflect our close relationship to India. And I think we can learn a lot from each other. Allow me to begin this event by thanking TERI from my heart for the organization of this event, as well as the overall summit. I know that this must be a lot of work. And it's therefore my pleasure to now hear from TERI directly, Dr. Yogesh Gokhale, Senior Fellow at TERI. Thank you for setting the scene for us. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Ilka-Hayat. Can we share the screen, please? Yeah. So what I will do is here, I will not take much time of yours, but I will set some of the rules for today's discussions and quickly run through some of the points where what do we mean by nature-based solutions and what we are discussing about. So as Mr. Subhash Chandra rightly pointed out in the beginning, that NBS is something not very new to Indian situations, because these are part of our customs and traditions. And so basically all NBAs are not necessarily a new knowledge, but it is a reinvention of existing solutions and traditional ecological knowledge with climate perspective. So most of our NBA's definitions and works which we would discuss over here are basically on this premise. And Why we are adopting those? Because of their cost efficacy, their decentralized nature of solution, and so on and so forth. So if you quickly if you want to put together what could be a conceptual framework for this, then say for forestry and biodiversity issues, there could be solutions such as agroforestry, sustainable forest management, which would also cover number of issues, number of existing traditional issues such as sacred conservation practices, sacred groves, which are already conserving number of plants, as well as we have more than 200,000 sacred groves which are supposedly there existing on the ground in various parts of India. In agriculture, we have with us Dr. Vinod Mathur, who also happened to be the chairperson of National Biodiversity Authority, and he would also looking at also the relation between the farmers' varieties, and we have today, even today, more than 5,000 varieties of rice which are cultivated, and the seeds are also available for the cultivation with National Bureau of Plant Genetic Resources. So what we need for such thing is a kind of better value chain where we would actually continue that as a process, and that as a very strong NBS in the context of agriculture. Land and water management, number of integrated projects across India. They have a very comprehensive and holistic perspective, starting from the social engineering to the soil engineering, where we specifically look at soil and moisture water conservation activities, and through that enhance the water conservation, availability of water, access to water to local communities. Then for tackling the mitigating the pollution, one of the very robust technology what we are talking about is from waste to compost, and all throughout WSDS there have been talks about circular economy, as well as these waste to compost as one of the major robust solutions. For energy, renewables, and I don't have to talk much about renewables on that. In the context of disaster management, the inducing resilience is one of the major aspects which been talked about as a kind of, yesterday there was a discussion, and it was a very interesting discussion. It's not a resilient infrastructure, but making the ecosystem more resilient in terms of sustaining and mitigating the shock, the climate change impacts. And then finally, with the industry, yesterday in the CEO forum, there was a very interesting discussion about the sustainable supply chains, as well as number of issues which actually industry would make change in terms of mitigating the impacts of climate change. So, and one would add more sectors to this kind of framework, and this is the way NBS would look like, and to a certain extent it's practicing on the ground, and we also need to walk that path. And how it would directly contributing to SDGs. So most of the NBS are directly addressing income generation as well as new job creations. Agriculture and forest-based NBS are one of the major answers to the zero hunger. As then gender equality is the focus of new job being created through NBS. Soil and moisture conservation based NBS and wetland management are sustaining and recharging water resources across India. And not only this is across India, but this is the global solution for water. Then affordable energy, new job creation, sustainable supply chains, agroforestry solutions. These are direct contribution to the sustainable development goals. Then the SDG 13, which is climate action, which is addressing the mitigation and adaptation, wetland management, forest conservation, developing responsible institutions to undertake climate actions. I think this is how there is a strong linkage between NBS and SDG, and I would prefer to stop here and pass on the floor to the chair. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Yogesh, for setting the agenda. Now, I request the first speaker from the panel, Dr. Vinod Mathur.
Thank you, Chair, friends and colleagues. What I plan to do in the next 6 to 7 minutes is basically talk about moving from concept to practice of the nature-based solutions, what kind of challenges it is throwing, and do we have some innovative out-of-the-box solution to push the NBS agenda. Now, one thing is very important, that this nature-based solution that we are talking is helping us or can help us to achieve the objectives of several conventions. So see the potential, the UNFCCC, the UNCCD, the UNDRR, the CBD, the Ramsar, and as was just mentioned, the Sustainable Development Goals. So here is a point which touches so many conventions, and that is the reason why we are here in this room today. A lot of debate is there on the NBS definition. Most of it is settled, but still there are doubts what NBS are and what aren't. And it is not my purpose here to get into that kind of a debate, but to say that there is a growing attention on NBS, but this concept certainly is not new. Communities around the world, and India in particular, have had long-standing traditions and practices of using nature to benefit their lives and their lands. Now that we are talking in the context of these solutions is something very important. Now, I want to share with you an idea that what is that which is of challenge to our country, and I will very quickly relate it to what happened in Montreal when the world accepted the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. So India, like all countries in the world, has conservation estate. My colleagues will recall we were referring to 5%, but that 5% is under the Wildlife Protection Act. Under the new norms of IUCN and CBD, all the reserve forest estate that we have, about 22% is the conservation estate of our country. But we have a challenging task ahead. And this challenge is this, that in October 21, India joined the 30 by 30 High Ambition Coalition for Planet and People. And we were the 71st country. And today there are more than 110 countries which are part of this. And we now have a global target in the Global Biodiversity Framework, where countries have accepted that 30% of their area of land and sea by 2030 will be brought under conservation. So now this is the challenge. We do have 22%, but we still have a goal to move to 30%. And then there is also a timeline. Now, how is this challenge going to be met is the question before us. We cannot, and I have no hesitation in saying, cannot expand our national parks and sanctuaries because there is a competing land use. People are against, government is not willing, and we need to therefore find out-of-the-box solutions to do that. And here is what I want to propose, perhaps for the first time, that there is an entity called the OECM, the Other Effective Area-Based Conservation Measures, which the IUCN is trying to define, which the CBD is trying to define. I again don't want to get into what are OECMs and what are PAs. They do have a relationship. There is an extent of overlap. Unfortunately, the guidance available currently is not much. Every country is trying to explain that. But what I want to propose, and India's own journey has been very small. We started 2 years back on OECM. We are into February 2023. We have made some beginnings, and those beginnings have been really very, very important. What India has done, and I am very pleased to share, is perhaps the only country in the world which has developed a classification for OECMs. And this is, again, as I said, a work in progress, 14 categories, covering all terrestrial areas, covering all water bodies, covering all oceans and seas. So that means there is a huge potential to identify areas. And I must say that we don't want to repeat or double count an area. An area which is already a national park cannot be an OECM. An area which is already a part of a sanctuary cannot be an OECM. So these are some of the challenges that we are dealing. But the good part is the governance category. Most of these parks and sanctuaries that we have are government managed. A few of them are community managed. But here are OECMs, which could be privately managed. Here are OECMs, which could be co-managed. So we have an option for using all 4 categories once we designate these OECM. And that is what we are trying to do. I mentioned about this 14 category classification, which is currently a work in progress with UNDP India. We are working on it. We have set up certain guidelines to enable our teams to identify these areas. And I won't go into details of it, but for each of the 14 categories, we have some guidelines, how to go, how to identify, how these have to be done. What I will quickly do is show you some glimpses to make you understand that what is the potential I'm talking about. The first is a park, not very far from here we are sitting, the Aravali Biodiversity Park, an area which is managed by the Hero Honda corporate group. So it is a corporate entity which is holding that. But that area is very rich in soil, in water, in moisture, in forest conservation. We have approached the corporate body that can we designate this area as an OECM. We don't want to usurp the land. We don't want to take it in our hand, but corporates also have their own corporate social responsibility. So this is one example which can do that. Again, Coromandel bird paraphrase. Again, a big corporate group in southern India, in Andhra Pradesh, has huge lands which can be considered as OECMs. Similarly, the big Godrej, they are maintaining these mangroves in Maharashtra. These can also be considered under that. So what I'm trying to say that we need to see the connect between the OECM and as nature-based solutions. After all, what are these? These are parts of nature. And what we are trying to give a kind of formalized process so that the 22% existing conservation estate of ours moves up to 30%. Whether we will actually be able to do it, it will be a challenge. But these are again some of the examples that we are doing, and we are looking at that. There is also a private nature reserve in India. Just a handful of them in my own state of Uttarakhand. We are reaching out to them and say that can you also allow this area to be designated as an OECM, and this will be a part of the nature-based solution which we are trying to push forward. Similarly, this is an area in the Kashmir area, saffron that we eat. These saffron fields are under private ownership. We have approached the communities over there. That can we also consider while it guns their livelihood for them. Can they be willing, would they be willing to be considered as a nature-based solution? And to my colleagues in the conservation sector, I want to appeal that we need to look beyond conservation as conserving tigers, lions, leopards, and so on. We need to redefine our definition of conservation. Is not soil, water, moisture conservation, climate conservation a part of overall conservation? So we need to keep our thinking hats. We need to expand these boundaries. We need to include corporates on one side, communities on the other. Then only the conservation movement can be converted into a momentum. What we have done, we have trying to keep the entire process simple. So there is an OECM web portal. If you type in Google, you will get to this portal. If you have an area in mind, if you are familiar with that area, you need to just write on that this is such and such area. UNDP India team representatives will go, they will talk, they will find out, does it have a potential and how best we can use and designate them. Obviously, there are challenges. People don't understand what OECMs are. People have difficulty in understanding NBS. And here I'm talking of two things together, OECMs as NBS. So the challenge definitely is there, but we can move ahead on that. There is also a rider, a case-by-case approach. So not every saffron field can be an OECM. Not every canal network can be an OECM. So there is a process behind that. Once we get an idea, once we get a proposal, teams will look into that. If they fulfill the criteria, we can do that. But what we are very clear that we don't want to commit the mistakes what we have done by expanding our national parks and sanctuaries. The real challenge is that we need to follow an inclusive approach. We don't want to exclude communities. We don't want to deprive people of their livelihood. in every single presentation that I've made, this question is asked that, will you not deprive communities if you take it over there? The other thing I want to say, at this point of time, we do not want to invoke a legal instrument to define them. Defining a legal instrument is, sometimes problematic, sometimes very difficult. At this point of time, we don't want to do it. We just want it to come under the portal, preferably managed by the National Biodiversity Authority. And as people understand that there is a value in it, there is a value in conserving nature, that is what we have been talking in the last 2 days over here, then we will move ahead on that. And obviously, we need to manage them, we need to monitor them, and there is already a due process of effectiveness evaluation. So if we do today and designate, we must have the baselines correct. And today I attended a session on monitoring, evaluation, and learning resources. Obviously, they are going to be part of that. So this is what we want to start, a pan-India process of preparing, identifying areas which are part of India's contribution to OECM and the nature-based solutions over there. Meetings like this are a starting point on that. We need to evolve an implementation framework. We need to also unlock the corporate social responsibility funds. The corporates are holding them. They want to be given a kind of a project where that money can be well spent on that. And therefore, in my view of conservation, corporates on one side, communities on the other, and together we can move ahead. Then only we can have inclusive conservation. In the 2022 International Biodiversity Day, our Honorable Minister released 2 documents, which is what I'm quoting from, the 14 category classification. These are available on the net, can be downloaded, that these are the compendium of what OECM is, what these categories are. Categories, again, I repeat, is a work in progress. If somebody comes up and says, can we add this category? Can we merge that category? We have to be democratic. We have to be inclusive over there. But finally, I want to say 3 things. There still is a need for bringing greater and further clarity and rigor. What is an NBS? What qualifies under that? The concept and the practice together. And while the word solution is already embedded in nature-based solution, I want to expand it and say that it is not just nature. It has to be tested on the grounds of culture because people are involved. It has to be tested on the grounds of tenure because people are owning that land. The first reaction to anybody we talk in India is that, will you take away this land? So tenure issues are there, culture issues are there. So when we talk of nature-based solutions, what I'm saying that we need to look into nature, culture, tenure in order to make them secure. Then only we can move in this direction of nature-based solutions, which the world is talking and we are talking, and we need to move ahead from here on. That is all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mathur, for very good presentation and explaining. She will be waiting.
Am I supposed to jump in here? Can you hear me? Jetzt ist hier irgendwie alles angehalten. Yes? Okay. I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt. Was I supposed to take the floor now? And to thank Dr. Mathur as well. Can you still hear me, colleagues? Yes, I'm very sorry. So thank you very much, Dr. Mathur. We don't know each other personally yet, I think, but by ministry, I was told that we have always worked very closely together, you and my ministry, especially in your former role at the National Biodiversity Authority of India. And so I'm very happy that this cooperation continues now in today's format, and I'm sorry for this virtual hybrid format. It would be much better to be with you in the room. Thank you so much for giving an overview of the challenges, but also possible solutions and implementing, of course, the 30 by 30 goals and presenting the work that India is doing on the OECM. This is very interesting, and I hope that Mechthild later on might also give some comments on this. But let us now first turn to our next speaker, who will also share a very valuable perspective when it comes to nature-based solutions for sustainable development. After all, implementation happens locally, and that's also what Dr. Mathur just said. We have to take into account the people and the livelihoods on the local ground. And so now, Mr. Shailesh Temburnika, I'm very curious to hear what you can share from your experience as a principal chief conservator of forests and from the experience in Maharashtra. The floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Co-Chairman, ma'am. Honorable Chairman for the thematic session, dignitaries on the dais, esteemed delegates for the WSDS, all the dignitaries who have joined online from Germany, and all the international audience who are connected online for this WDS. Good evening to all of them. The nature-based solution, the acronym I think is NBS. It is already defined, and we are well aware about the definitions and the components of nature-based solutions. As already said in the session, that it is a old practice, and India knows it well, no doubt about that. But it needs to be seen in the modern context. Nature-based solutions are nothing but methodology to restore, to rejuvenate, to protect, to conserve natural ecosystems. Then the second part comes. When you conserve, restore, rejuvenate, and protect these natural ecosystems and restore them to the pre-industrial times, when all natural cycles were in equilibrium, so that the adverse impacts of climate change are minimized, which ensures the food and water security, livelihood securities, ensure the health and disaster management on sustainable basis. Now these systems enhance productivity and help removal of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So that is what I comprehend as NBS. And the estimate suggests that almost 20 to 37% of the mitigation which is needed up to 2030 can be achieved through NBS. Now these are the natural ecosystems, natural cycles. Before the advent of industrial revolution, that is almost 250 years back, all these natural cycles were in equilibrium. Now the equilibrium is disturbed now because of the emission of greenhouse gases, because of these anthropogenic activities. Now we have to restore back the equilibrium of these natural cycles. That is what we call as eco-restoration. Now we all are aware that this is the decade as declared by United Nations for ecosystem restoration, 2021 to 2030. Now we in the field do this. Basically, our activities are correlated with this restoration, landscape restoration, eco-restoration. Now, these are the salient features of the NBS. NBS is a path of eco-restoration. NBS is nothing but restoration of equilibrium of nature cycles. NBS is tapping auto-cleansing potential of nature. For example, if you add pollutants to a river, then you cannot keep on adding the pollutants to the river. River gets polluted. But if you add minimal pollutants, then that natural resource has got auto cleansing ability. Now, what is the auto cleansing ability of each of these nature's cycle that needs to be studied? And you can add pollutants to that level only, up to which the nature cycles can assimilate and auto cleanse. Beyond that, you cannot. So that is the limitation of NBS. NBS alone cannot address climate change. NBS needs to be implemented in synergy with the emission reductions through change in technology and changing consumption pattern also. NBS, the carbon is stored in biomass, natural ecosystems, which are dynamic, complex, and are susceptible for reversion. So these are the limitations, but nevertheless, there are certain advantages also. For example, there are co-benefits like livelihood issues of the locals are addressed, the generates employment, it improves the, decreases the pollution level, improves the quality of air and water, and reduces the adverse impact of climate change through mitigation and adaptation strategies. So ultimately, the takeaway is that I want that the quantification and measurements of assessment of impacts of NBS needs to be carried out, so that we should go in for mathematical modeling. There are a lot of tools for quantification, for assessment. So for each of these systems, we should calculate as to what is the potential for mitigation for each of these NBS systems. Now, we all are aware that the major component of the greenhouse gases is carbon dioxide. So that is why almost 64.3% of the greenhouse gases, if you see the composition, is carbon dioxide only. So we address carbon dioxide. We want to sequester carbon dioxide so as to reduce the adverse impact of climate change. Now, how to reduce the carbon dioxide? How to mitigate? So NBS is the best solution for reducing the carbon dioxide from the air. Now, I just wanted to show you this global carbon cycle. You would appreciate that the ocean uptake of carbon is, say, 92 units. You can see these fluxes, and the carbon dioxide which is released by the oceans in the atmosphere is 90 units. So the net carbon sequestration in the oceans is only 2 units. If you see the other flux on the terrestrial ecosystems, through photosynthesis, 120 units of carbon is sequestered. If you add the carbon sequestered through liter fall, it is 60, that is 180. And the carbon released in the atmosphere is 60 units. Means the net carbon dioxide which is sequestered through these terrestrial forestry systems is almost 120 units. So there is no other NBS system which exists which can sequester carbon to such an extent. So the tree plantation, afforestation, managing these terrestrial ecosystems is of utmost importance. It is the best solution of NBS. Now, if you compare these engineering modes of sequestration, now there is a engineering mode of sequestration. You can liquefy the carbon dioxide and store it underground. Now, if you want to liquefy this carbon dioxide, say 1 ton of carbon dioxide, then the costs are to the tune of $60 per ton of carbon dioxide, which can be sequestered and stored in the aquifers below ground. So it requires energy also. So this is the engineering solution. But if you see, this is NBS, which is cost effective. Only $10 are required for sequestering 1 ton of carbon dioxide. It means the sequestration through NBS is cheaper, is cost effective, is better, and there are many co-benefits that flow out of these systems. Now, I would like to give you the real life application of this eco-restoration, what we have carried out in the state of Maharashtra. Nature-based solution as applied in the Maharashtra. Maharashtra is the 3rd largest state in the country. And if you see the forest area, almost 23.58% of the landmass is under forest cover in the country. In the state of Maharashtra, it is 20.13%, which is 7.99% of the country. And the typical forests which are found in the state of Maharashtra are dry deciduous forest, moist deciduous forest, semi-evergreen forest, and we have got the mangroves also. We have got a 720 kilometers of coastline. And you can see even the India's State of Forest report, which is published biannually by the Forest Survey of India, which vouches that there is increase in the forest cover. So the 20 square kilometer has increased as compared to 2019. Even the area under bamboo has also increased. The mangrove cover has increased by 4 square kilometer. Tree cover outside forest has also increased by 1302 square kilometer. And the carbon stock of Maharashtra is 451.61 million tons, which is 4th place in the country. Now, these are the ecosystem restoration works which have been carried out in the state of Maharashtra. These are afforestation works. Now, these afforestation works in the last 5 years, we have planted 500 million trees. That is 50 crores of trees. So it is a massive afforestation drive which was carried out in the state of Maharashtra. If you assess the carbon sequestration potential of this afforested area, then it will be millions of tons. So that is the very important ecosystem or landscape restoration activity which has been carried out in the state of Maharashtra. These are all real life examples. Then we have carried out fodder plantations, grassland plantations. We have rejuvenated these grassland ecosystems. We have carried out 10,000 hectares of plantations and of grassland. We have rejuvenated grassland systems. And you will appreciate that grassland systems are very good carbon sinks. And they are very good carbon sinks because they sequester carbon and store in the soil. So you can see these grasslands which have been developed. And then there are certain meadow works, the certain villages which are relocated from the protected areas. Almost 66 villages have been relocated, and those relocated areas have been converted into meadows. And you would appreciate that the strength of tigers in the year 2006 in the state of Maharashtra was 106. And now, as per the census report 2018, it is 342 tigers are there. Now, Nagpur is known as the tiger capital of the country. So there are 342 tigers. So I invite all the international delegates to visit our place, Tadoba and all. You can see the tigers. So it is a tiger territory. Then we have undertaken a lot of soil and moisture conservation works. And you would appreciate that these water bodies which are created, they are also great carbon sinks. So the carbon is sequestered in water bodies, in forests, in soil, in oceans also. So we are restoring all these terrestrial ecosystems together. So these are the real life examples. Most of these structures, now the water is impounded, and now all these the potential which we have created, surface water bodies, are helping us in carbons as a carbon sinks. So these are some of the pictures. Then wildlife and ecotourism. I have already told you that the number of tigers have increased from 106 to 343. It is a great success story. Then we have addressed the livelihood opportunities for forest dwellers also. We have distributed the LPG to the people, then improved chulas. Then these non-conventional energy sources were also put in place. So we have addressed the livelihood issues. We have trained the local tribals also. They have taken up various professions, and their income levels have also increased. Now, this is my last slide. What should be the way forward? Actually, the success story of Maharashtra is only because we got the right investment to do. So if you want any NBS system to succeed, investment is required. So we have to pool this investment, that the NBS finance options. Then we have to international communities, international donor agencies, they all should collaborate. Private as well as government sector, they should enter into an agreement for this finance of NBS. There are certain opportunities like disaster management funding is there, CSR funding is there, donations, international aid, government funding for environmental concerns. The need of the hour is that technical and administrative collaboration amongst all the international governments, all the stakeholders and the civil society is required. And all these NBS projects, they require long gestation period to mature and to deliver results. So that is why we want to have long-term partnership, collaborations with international community, as well as the local regional communities, civil societies and the government, and finance is also required for its continuity. At the same time, robust MRV mechanism required, and this is an era of computers. Emotionally, we can speak, qualitatively, we can speak, but we should be in a position to quantify. Quantitatively, we should be in a position to speak. So mathematical modeling and quantification is of utmost importance, so which gives us a basis and the real basis for the NBS mechanism. So that is what I just wanted to advocate. And lastly, I would like to share you one video. We adopt modern technologies like, say, LIDAR, light detection and ranging. We adopted it for restoring a landscape area in the Amravati district, and you would appreciate that how the technology has helped us in eco restoration. Lastly, I would like to say that every country in the world wants to increase its GDP, increase its wealth through industrialization. But that can be achieved with this NBS system by reducing the carbon footprints as well as by adopting the low carbon economy and decarbonizing. We can achieve those targets, increasing GDP as well as increasing industrialization through digital economy. Thank you very much.
Very, you can say, making presentation with very good examples from the field and focusing on restoring equilibrium of nature and natural cycle, landscape restoration. Now I invite Dr. J.V. Sharma, who is Program Director, Water, Waste and Natural Resources, TERI, for the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. I won't take much time. Since I will also not repeat the definition of NBS, my previous speakers, they have already explained. But I like to mention that NBS solutions only reverse the biodiversity loss and mitigate climate change when livelihood needs of the people are met. And the estimated mitigation potential of NBS, if scaled up, though avoiding carbon sources and enhancing carbon sink, is roughly 10 gigaton CO2 per year, which is around 27% of the global emissions, provided we channelize finance to this implementing and nature-based solutions, and also building capacity to implement the nature-based solutions of the people, particularly living in and around the nature. I will be bit focusing on the forestry sector as one of the nature-based solution in India. India is giving priority to nature-based solutions, in particular forestry sector, for achieving 2.5 to 3 billion tons of CO2 equivalent by additional tree plantations by 2030. Achieving land degradation neutrality of more than 26 million hectares by 2030, and also achieving national biodiversity target. India has a strong policy and regulatory regime to implement nature-based solutions. For achieving these targets, National Forest Policy 1980 mandated to have ecological security of the nation as a prime objective, with the involvement of the forest-dependent communities, including tribals, with the support of Indian Forest Act 1927, Wildlife Protection Act 1927, 1972, Forest Conservation Act 1980, Environment Protection Act, Forest Right Act 2006, and the PESA. Many other legislations are also I'm not mentioning. Biological Diversity Act provides regulatory regime for biodiversity conservation and access benefit sharing to the people who are involved in the conservation of the biological resource. Many of these legislations have interlinkages and do not contradict each other, rather support each other. These legislations provide a space for people's participation for protection, management, and conservation of the natural resources, including biodiversity. So when I mentioned that all legislations provide a space for the people's participation, and we have to think twice, thrice, or many times that we are implementing in a right spirit and in spirit of the preamble of the respective legislations, those legislations to achieve the targets. If I take example of a biological diversity, I am taking in particularly because we know this here, so that we are conserving biodiversity, but the other part of the act is whether we are achieving the providing an access to the benefit sharing to the community who are involved in the conservation of the biological resource. And act is 2002, and we are in after 20 years. We have failed to have a mechanism to pass on the benefits to the people who are involved in the conservation of the biological diversity. So this part, Government of India and other state government have to look into, and also some of the resources and capacity building is also needed, and the developed countries also must look into that. I am also again taking up one of the legislation, the Forest Right Act 2006 keeps intact the social and environmental safeguards by providing occupation, habitation, and governance right. Third right, I am mentioning the governance right to the people who are primarily residing in forest and dependent for their livelihood, and more than 400 million people. This is a big number. People are deriving their full or partial livelihood from the forest resources, and Forest Right Act 2006 and the Biological Diversity Act 2002 mandated also for the sustainable use of the biological resource too. This is a big challenge, and implementation of the Forest Right Act 2006 focuses more on occupation rights rather than sustainable use and management of the natural resources, including forests and the biological resources. And this is what I'm saying. with the support of the many research work and many reports in the country. And two people are sitting in this room also. Manthan report is being produced by Pandey sir, and one of my PhD student have done her thesis, Aparna Tyagi, and one of my other student, Sayukta Mudgal, recently awarded PhD degree for the implementation of the forest right. If you read those reports, your eyes will be opened that how we are implementing this beautiful act which have been formulated by then passed by our parliament. Implementation of, yes, agroforestry is another nature-based solution in India, which is meeting around more than 80% rather, wood and wood products demand of the country. And this figure also again taking Pandey Saab's book, and also contributing largely to achieve 2.5 to 3 billion ton of the equivalent carbon dioxide sequestration. There is an adequate policy and regulatory regime in the country, there is no doubt. The big challenge is the market failure and the quality planting material. And I am not mentioning that quality and regulatory. Many people say that quality and regulatory and blame transit regulation for the demotivating farmer to go for the agroforestry. But I do not agree with that. The quality planting material and the market failure is a big reason, and how we can have the solution. Minimum support price like other agriculture crop could be one of the solution for the not the market failure, and more investment in research and development could be the solution for the quality planting material in agroforestry, so that from the minimum land we can have the maximum productivity. National level financing is not sufficient to mitigate and adapt climate change, achieving sustainable development goal and national biodiversity target through nature-based solutions. But developed countries must contribute towards the implementation of the nature-based solutions. Many developed countries are supporting India to implement NBS, such as, I will give you two examples only. One from the United States, we have the bilateral agreement between India and US, and they have supported Forest Plus 1, they have supported Forest Plus 2, and the ultimate objective of the Forest Plus 1 and 2 was producing a project document for achieving financial resources through carbon finance from REDD+. But both 1 and 2 got failed, and most of the finance gone to the capacity building and other aspects. Real implementation was lacking. And third, another present project is a tree outside forest is under implementation. And recently, Ministry of Environment and Forest issued a guideline to the implementing agency of this project that at least quality planting material producing seedlings, high-tech nursery, at least one in the state has to be established. Number two, one tissue culture laboratory has to be established in each of the targeted states. 7 states are there. So that I also request the chair to see that aspect, that substantial amount of these grants must be used and the state at the state level for the implementation of the activities. Not only India has enough policy and regulatory mechanism and a policy document, not for the producing policy document and policy briefs and policy documents and left to the national government to implement it. So that this aspect, again, second example I am giving from the government of Germany. They have bilateral cooperation with the government of India and implemented a project in the past in the same way as I am mentioning for the US-India bilateral cooperation. And the new project you are going to finance a recap for NDC. And in this project, this is under preparation, I think. And in this project, I request the government of Germany and the we are also partner. TERI is also partner. TERI is also partner in the USAID project, the tree outside project. So that substantial amount must go to the state government for the implementation of the activity. So that is very important aspect, that only when financial resources are with the developing countries for implementing NBS for well-being of the human being as well as ecosystem. Alone ecosystem well-being we cannot see without the well-being of the people. NBS could be the cheapest mechanism to achieve NBT, mitigating and adapting climate change, achieving sustainable development goals, and also achieving land degradation neutrality, provided adequate financial resources are made available for the same. And with this, I stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sharma. I think it is okay if I take the floor, dear colleagues in the room. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Sharma. I know I was told that you have been so important for the organization of this event. So please let me take the opportunity to thank you at this point. It's really great to hear from TERI and the ongoing work on nature-based solutions. TERI is a very strong partner, and this is key for implementation, as we also heard from Dr. Sharma. Thank you also for mentioning the recap for NDC project that is about to start, I think. Yes. Must be like a few weeks and then it starts, and we are very eager, and it's important also to hear from you what you think, where this should lead, and what are the challenges and what we should focus on. So thanks a lot for this input. Also, I want to shortly comment on the topic of finance, just to say that, of course, I know this is an important topic, and I also feel that we still have a lot of need for discussion there, for nature-based solutions, I am convinced that it's important not to only focus on the ecosystem's ability to sequester and store carbon, but to also have a look at the variety of ecosystem services they can provide. But I do think we have had this whole variety in the other presentations, so thanks for this. Of course, one more thing, a long-term transformation is key, I think, not only short-term carbon counts, but I'm convinced that we will get further in the discussion of finance in these upcoming years. I mean, we also saw that in Montreal, of course, that this is a key factor. So it's now my pleasure to invite my colleague Mechthild Kaspers from the same ministry as I am, the Ministry for Environment, and she will share experiences of Germany and from our ministry. Mechthild and her team have for the last years been dealing with the topic of nature-based solutions, and have for the course of the last year been working, and I know they had a lot of work and still have, on a new key national policy, the Federal Action Plan on Nature-based Solutions for Biodiversity and Climate. Mechthild, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. And let me first express that this is my pleasure to be here and to be able to share our German approach and some of the lessons we have learned so far. I would like to structure my talk following three questions. The first is, why are nature-based solutions so important for us? The second is, what approach did we take in Germany? And the third one is, what lessons did we learn so far? The first one has already been answered in a lot of different ways today. And I would like to point to the IUCN concept again, which tells us we always have to look at the multiple crises and seek for solutions that can help us tackle them simultaneously, searching for synergies and reaching multiple SDGs at the same time. If we look at the state of our nature, we see degrading ecosystems that cause major risks. If we looked at the greenhouse gas emissions that are produced, we can look at forest fires, we can look at the drained peatlands, which are very important sources of greenhouse gases, especially in Germany. But not only greenhouse gas emissions are among the problems. We see biodiversity loss, we see food insecurity, we see a threat to livelihoods, and we see a decrease in the ability to adapt, just to name a few of the risks that we see. So we have to deal with degrading ecosystems and find better solutions. We heard today in several talks that it is so important to keep in mind the population, the livelihoods, and I can only agree with this point of view. So we need nature-based solutions with robust environmental and social safeguards, and we have to create co-benefits for the people. If we choose these nature-based solutions, they can help us to reach our climate and biodiversity goals and also other SDGs, and they will help us to meet the targets we have for climate and biodiversity on the international level, on the EU level, and on our national level. And with this, I will come to the next questions. What approach do we choose for Germany? Our government decided when it took up work in the end of 2021 that one major project is this Federal Action Plan on Nature-based Solutions for Climate and Biodiversity that Ilka just mentioned and that we have been drafting during the last year. Now it is almost finished. We hope for a decision by the Federal Cabinet at the end of March. We're just in the final process of negotiating between the ministries. The action plan contains 69 measures in 10 fields of action, and these measures address all kinds of ecosystems, from forests, farmland, peatland, urban and coastal ecosystems. The measures are designed to meet the climate goals in the land use sector, and they use the synergies between climate and biodiversity and the other co-benefits that nature-based solutions offer. One very important one is adaptation. We will look at protecting, strengthening, and restoring ecosystems. And what is important to us that we transform the way that we use land at the moment and find new ways that are compatible with our climate and biodiversity goals. And this we can only do if we have strong partnerships with the landowners, the land managers, if we engage with all the stakeholders involved, and if we listen to the local population and to their needs. This is why when we drafted the plan, the action plan, one important thing to us was to have a very early on participation process. And we had 2 months where people could give their views to what we are drafting. And we got a very good resonance that people said, we see it on the ground, what is happening. We see that nature is changing. We see the risks that are coming up, the difficulties we are facing. And they really appreciate that we are doing something and give us good advice on how to even better implement this plan. What we chose for the plan was a broad mix of instruments. One central part is financial incentives and funding. We want people to have an opportunity to improve their own way of managing the land, have a gain for themselves, and at the same time contribute to biodiversity and climate goals. And therefore we will take 4 billion euros until 2026 and use them for those financial incentives and funding. We also need awareness raising. We need a review of our regulatory framework to make sure that all the measures can work and are not counteracted by other regulations which are in place at the moment. We need more research, we need robust MRV, and we are convinced we need cooperation, not only within our national system, but also on the international and on the EU level. So this is why I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today, to hear, to learn, and also to share. And this leads me to the next questions. What did we learn so far and what can we share? We learned that we need strong networks and strong partnerships. Internationally, we need those, and we just heard about ICI projects and also for exchange and learning from each other. This is important for us as well. We need cooperation on the EU level. Peatland is one very important example because peat can be is a good that can be traded within the EU. We do not have a chance to solve all the problems concerning to peat all on our own. And nationally, we need those strong networks with our länder, with the regions, the municipalities, And we learned from the participation projects that they are all eager to engage and they want to join forces for our goals. And next lesson is public participation is key, and it is key to do it early on. We need to build trust. We need to think from the landowners and land users perspective, and we have to showcase solutions that work. And this is why we started with the peatland part, which is very important in Germany, that we do re-wetting of peatlands in order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And we have 4 pilot projects running where landowners and land users can see how this works and what are the new forms of land use they can implement on re-wetted peatlands. We also learned that the single focus on carbon is too narrow. We have to aim for a transition that leads to resilient ecosystems and to a sustainable use, and which gives long-term economic perspectives to the land users. Resilient ecosystems are the basis for a sustainable business model for them. And just to summarize all of what we learned and what we believe where we have to go, with NBS, we can meet our climate and biodiversity goals and other SDGs as well. But if we don't work on both goals, we will reach neither of them. This is what we are convinced about and why we need this federal action plan. With this, I would like to close, and back to you, Ilka.
Thank you so much, Mechtel. This was very interesting for me because we don't talk so often either, but I think I'm supposed to give the floor to my co-chair, Mr. Subhash Chandra. Sorry for this.
Thank you, Ms. Kasp. इसको ऑफ करो, इधर ही होगा. So we have very interesting and you can say very good perspective coming from different presentations. So if the House agrees, we can extend the time because the time is very close to 5:30. So if majority agrees, we can expand by 10 minutes. 5 will not do justice because we have such a galaxy of experts present here. So we would like to hear from them. After these 4 presentations, we would have question and answer and comments from the audience. After that, I will have very brief comments and will give the closing remarks to my co-chair. So I invite questions and comments from our distinguished audience. Please be brief, and if you are asking a question, please mention the speaker which you want, the panelist which you want to hear from. Thank you. It is time for question answer. I think 10 minutes time was there. So just kindly be brief in your comments and questions and specifically point out to whom your question is. You will need mic.
So good afternoon, sir. I am A.M. Singh, a retired forest officer. My question is to Dr. Mathur, please. Because in your presentation, you had mentioned about OECM and vis-a-vis PAs, and we mentioned about that we are not going with the legal aspect of that for the time being, and we'll try to put it on a portal. But whatever I have seen and whatever could be observed, that unless until you will not have a legal support or backing of any of the system, or where you're going to increase your 22% to 30%. So what is your idea behind not to go for the time being with the legal status of OECM?
Can you hear me? See, I need to explain the perspective of what I said. See, right now we have certain laws. Either we use those laws to designate an OECM or we create a new law. You also understand creating a new law can be very, very long and difficult process. Right now, we need to create an understanding that there is a thing or entity called an OECM. This is what it is supposed to do. And these will be the benefits. These will be restrictions or whatever other management requirements will be there. What I basically want to say that let's not get bogged down by having the law first. That is what I meant. If after a few years of experience, people themselves feel that yes, their interests will be better served by having a law, then either we amend either the BD Act or the Wildlife Act or whatever act, if that can do that. And you also understand our current experience of either creating a new law or amending the law. So let's not diverge our attention to areas which are important, but I would say not of immediate importance. That's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Dr. Devendra Pandey, sir.
I am Devendra Pandey, retired IFS officer. Firstly, I would like to compliment the presenters here, especially Sailesh. I don't know, I have met him before. Mathur Sahab is a well-known, international speaker. Sarma Sahab, I would like to compliment them first for the wonderful, very relevant and very articulated to the point presentation, number one. Then my part of the question has been stolen by AMC. I wanted to raise this question to Vinodji. See, declaring, identifying certain areas looks to me that it is only academic and theoretical exercise. Question is that we have to enhance natural-based solution areas. Means we have a lot of degraded forest. We have scrub forest. We have partly question is this theoretical exercise or academic exercise of identifying the areas. I mean, that can be done with a lot of technology available. We have system available for doing it. But the question is upgrading it, bringing it at the point what Sailesh has made, restoring the area to the stage where from the degradation has started. There is another term, land degradation neutrality. You bring it to that stage. The question is, do we have some parameters? How to really know that stage first and how to reach to that stage. Knowing the stage and reaching to that stage. So if you can give some comment on this or any one of you, I'll be very happy.
So let me explain like this. We are talking of two different but related things. When we talk of OECM and NBS, we are looking at areas which are other than forest. Because anything which is forest, whether rich, whether degraded, is already a part of our conservation estate. So what you are trying to say that there are certain actions to be taken in restoring their degraded status. But that will not add beyond 22%. That is already covered and counted. What we need to be sure about is not to double count it. And that is where we are looking at areas which could be, if you look at these 14 category classification, these lands we have never looked in the past. And I will give you one example to make my point. We understand that we have constructed dams. Dams also have canals. Canals are owned by irrigation department, and canals have their own purpose. What is the purpose? Water flows in it. And sometimes what is bad for engineering, that these canals leak, is good for conservation. Because when the water leaks from these canals, it creates pools of water. And the life kicks in. You will have algae, you will have fungi, you will have bees, you will have butterflies, and you will have many, many more things on that. So what we want to do is to treat the canal network of this country, obviously on a case-by-case basis, as a new land, which can help us to move from 22% to 30%. So this is one example I said. Same thing you mentioned about sacred groves. Sacred groves are inside forest. Sacred groves are also on revenue land. If they are inside forest, they are already counted under forest cover. They are already done in 22%. We need to look at sacred groves which are on the revenue lands, on the village commons. And if the local communities are willing to partner and designate them as OECM, then it helps us to move beyond 22%. So your point is very correct. We need separate steps. My forester colleagues have to take care of how to improve and how to do ecological regeneration. He already gave examples of Maharashtra. Perhaps every state has those areas. We need to do that. But the OECM NBS combo, which I am saying, has to look beyond newer areas.
No, but I never said. So now it has come to 25, roughly 25%. We have to make the addition only from outside. My question was that only by doing this theoretical exercise, if we are able to achieve our target of 30 by 30, or by doing some exercise on the ground of restoration, by protecting them, by rehabilitating them, by planting them in whatever Sarma Saab ka rahe the ki quality planting material and so many things. It has to all go inside the effort. The question is this, because doing theoretical exercise is like Forest Survey of India also did theoretical exercise by stretching from 21% to 25% just by adding it, tree outside forest. Isn't it? The tree cover has been added. So the efforts are not there actually, which will help in the getting the climate solution of carbon sequestration. Carbon sequestration will be only there when there is a improvement in the vegetation which can store the carbon. Idea was this.
Sir, I would like to react to your question. Actually, we should have a integrated holistic approach. We should not think only about the forested ecosystems, because mitigation is being done by all the nature cycles which are existing on the earth. So we should have integrated holistic approach, and the NBS system includes oceanic system, then wetlands, then forest systems, agriculture lands. So all these systems help us in mitigation. So we should have a integrated and holistic approach, and we should try to restore its pristine original productivity as well as that state before pre-industrial times. So that should we aim for. Okay, thank you very much.
What is important? You mentioned that LDN. Yeah. What are the parameters? Yes. Yes, you are very right. To 26 million hectare, including forest. Even a forest land, we do not have the parameters. parameter on agricultural land, we do not have the much of the parameters. Some parameters are there. So that
I think one-to-one discussion we can, because it is.
We have to develop the
getting
parameters.
interesting, but we can't leave other participants who want to ask questions to. Yeah, Amit first, then the lady behind in the fourth row, third row, second row, then. Please be short.
Yeah, I'll make it brief, sir. So I'm Amit Kumar, I'm partner in Ernst & Young, and I look at the environment, climate change work that we do there. So I'll just make this question very brief. First of all, I put my appreciations, convey my appreciations for the wide spectrum and the detail in which NBS was discussed. My question is, are we only thinking of NBS in isolation where we are not taking care of the activities of communities and people? Some of which is for sustainability, livelihood, and some of which is for commerce. Now, given what communities have been doing, if they continue to do, how feasible is NBS going forward? And what kind of incentive mechanism? Because somebody pays. So if a community accepts NBS and then there's a fall of output in money value or whatever extent, how do other people compensate? Do we have some sort of market mechanism? Can we create any market mechanism? So I just wanted to ask the panel, anybody, if there are any examples or any thought that is going on, because otherwise it appears to be a kind of our old wine in the new bottle, if I may use the word.
Your question is very right, but answer is very difficult. You see the LDN definition, UNCCD document defined beautifully. If we try to develop parameter, it is rather beyond imagination to develop the parameter for achieving that defined target. As far as NBS are concerned, recently one book, decent work in NBS has been released during the COP15 of CBD. And fortunately, I have gone through that book line by line and have seen that the kind of definition they have given by the decent work, kind of definition they have given by the how livelihood is attached to the NBS, so that with those definitions are very, very difficult to implement NBS. But yes, NBS is important. As far as I give example of the agroforestry, farmers are doing plantation, they are implementing NBS solutions, they are harvesting timber, they are sequestering carbon. We have to provide certain additional benefits of the carbon sequestration aspect, their effort. So forest dependent communities are involving in form of the JFMCs or the eco EDCs, and their effort should also be compensated in some way or other, so that these are the aspects where the ecological restoration and the nature-based solution only should not be left at the to the farmers or the forest-dependent communities without compensating their effort. So the compensation of their effort is very important, so that to some extent we can implement, are implementing, and will implement also. But what are the definition defined by the in certain documents? It is rather very, very impossible to implement in totality. But yes, in a partial way, definitely we can implement.
Yes, please.
So I wanted to ask a question about NBS and cities. Trees.
Your name, please.
So sorry, Sonal from CSEC.
Okay.
And if we take the case of Bangalore right now, we are seeing that urban local bodies themselves are cutting trees for infrastructure, and they're only being, I mean, this was only revoked because of resident opposition. What can be, and we are also seeing lakes being filled up to build for urbanization, etc. What can be the mechanisms for protecting, enhancing natural either water bodies or trees in cities and urban areas, because they are at threat? How do we institute accountability from governments? Because this is being initiated to a large part either by governments or with their approval. This question is to Mr. Sharma and Mathur.
Me, I think.
I don't know, I guess to the full panel.
Chair will give the better answer to that.
In fact, I will respond
Chair is
to
expert on that subject.
I will respond to it in the last. Yes. Next. Here.
Yeah, my name is Sahindra from WWF India. I'm a student of Dr. Mathur. So my question is to Mathur. So you said that OECM's, it's like still been developed. Like many of the private lands are now, which has been maintaining their biodiversity and has slowly been converted into OECM. Looking at the pressures with the national forest, do you think in the longer term, the OECM will be able to withstand and this is sustainable to achieve 30% of the land? So that's my question here.
Before that, please, may I seek your permission for extending time, my co-chair, Ilka ma'am. Should we extend it further because it is already 5:40?
So I have a little time problem. I could stay like 10 minutes longer, but then I really have to run because my next, meeting is coming up. But I see that the discussion is so lively, so I do not want to disturb it. So I can stay for 10 more minutes. And if you still need to discuss or want to discuss, then I would run away and you would have to close the event. So let's go on for the next 10 minutes. Thank you.
So, quick question from ma'am, please.
So, sir, actually in my, so I am Gulnoor Kaur from Haryana. So, in my city, there is literally no forest. There are only some parks. So, if we want to have 30% of the tree cover forest, should it be more distributed? So, can we introduce some kind of a green patch or a forest in a city? And
understood. Yeah. And any other questions? We can have maximum 2. Yes, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dimple Adlakha from Lady Irwin College, University of Delhi. So my question is, we had some practices like zoom cultivation and creation of home gardens in the past. So what if we restore them along with adopting new ones to nature-based solution approach?
Yes, one more question.
I was hesitant because everybody here has already asked this question. Very, very briefly. Pramod Khan, retired Indian Forest Service officer. I am wondering why the ABS has not succeeded to the extent that it was expected to, access and benefit sharing. Why it has not succeeded to the extent that it was expected to. In minor ways, somewhere it may have, but largely it can only be seen as a failure. So this to Dr. Mathur, but anybody else also.
So this question is outside the syllabus. That's what I will say first. The only answer to your question is the willingness. I have dealt in the last 4 years a large section of people who belong to the corporate world and who belong to the world of legalese. Both these people are not willing. The law is saying very minute amount of access and benefit sharing. Everybody wants access, nobody wants to share the benefits. That is a very crude way of answering that. So unless that willingness comes up, I don't think so we are going to make much headway, no matter how many times we amend the act. And to your question, Arindram, and to your question, it is only the question of awareness. Where is the awareness in the minds of common people? Move outside this room and ask somebody that why we should conserve nature. I don't think so you will get a correct answer. So to me, again, our own effort needs to be there, that we make as much effort as possible to raise awareness, to now value the nature, and to understand that nature's capital is the capital to work on. Unless we imbibe these kind of a feelings and passion, I don't think so whether we make a law or whether, as you said, old wine in old bottle or new bottle, nothing is going to work till we do that. I am not pessimist. The new education policy, the way things are moving, you and I and our children and brothers included, They are much, much more aware than what we were 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So there is a lot of hope. We need to continue with that. That's all I will say.
Now, I think co-chair Ilka ma'am will be speaking on her comments, and I will, because she is in a hurry, so I will take the last call on answering some of the questions which may not satisfy the questioners. Please.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Subhash Chandra, and also for your patience with me as your co-chair. So, well, I can just try to summarize what I learned today from this very lively discussion and these interesting presentations. I'm honored to be in this meeting here with so many experts. And what I learned is that, well, of course, nature-based solutions are one very key instrument for tackling the biodiversity and climate crisis. And I do think we absolutely heard that we have to adapt and integrate an holistic approach. And I also heard from many of the speakers that this is not a new idea or a new concept. Of course not. Our ancestors and the local communities have used and invented nature-based solutions for centuries, but of course we have to think them in a modern way, as we heard today. And this is also why I think that the people have to be, of course, at the heart of all nature-based solutions. We won't tackle any crisis without having the needs and livelihoods of people in our minds. But of course, the awareness raising and education question that was just raised now is also very key to these people living in the nature. So I think it's a very interesting discussion, not close to be finished. And this is also why I leave you continuing discussing, of course, and thank you very much. And I also think I have to travel to Maharashtra. This is one other takeaway I had from the excellent presentation I saw. So thank you very much, and have a good discussion. Hope to meet you in person at one point. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you, Ilka ma'am.
Thank you.
I need to also exit. There is a plenary, so that's also a nature-based solution. So please come there once you finish the session. Thank you.
So now I have to, I will try to answer some of the questions, because, and there are no real answers, but we have to find those through our more positivity and constructive approaches. There is a scope for multi-pronged strategy and millions of small actions, experiment which will contribute towards our sustainability. It is not one agency or one person can do it. So increasing, first I will address the greenery in the urban context. Ministry is trying to build, it is number tentatively fixed at 1,000 city forest or Nagar 1 in the country. And it can go to any extent. We are looking at 1,000, and minimum area for Nagar 1 is 10 hectare. It can be 20 hectare or whatever, up to, there is no, you can say, issue of funding. We are trying to make funding from Campa. And this is to bring back greenery wherever possible, trees in the city environment, bring more biodiversity, and make cities climate resilient. And there is a lot of action. We have almost reached 350 or 400 in a year or so. Then our Prime Minister has talked about Mission Life, or life for environmentally, lifestyle for environment, and sustainable and sustainable lifestyle, and mindful and responsible consumption. In fact, for the most of the funding, particularly from the international agencies, they are spent mostly on the talking about work, not for actual work. So our request, I think, will be that agency should focus on real action on the ground, where something is done. Otherwise, publishing few papers, few policy something that doesn't help, because we all are there. Everywhere the same people are working or some more experts. So the real action should be on ground, maybe on a smaller scale or larger, so that those learnings can be shared. And it calls for, because nature-based solutions are nothing, it is traditions with science. So it is mutually strengthening, and we learn what has helped us in the past and what will work with the science, practicing good examples. These environmental challenges are quite complex and challenging. So it is not very easy answers are there, but my experience of 35 years in the forestry sector has been, if we work for 10%, the nature comes forward with 90%. So don't lose hope. Just try to your initial small action, the nature will reward you. So it is for the youngsters, my advice would be the things will be better with you all contributing towards that. But conservation to succeed, they should be economically viable. With no conservation will succeed if it is not economically sustainable. So we have to see that conservation pays. If the people or community is conserving something, some resources, maybe, so how they get the money back? And it is more than what they could have gained by destroying or by altering the good productive capacity of the land or water or nature. So this we have to take into account. One of the worries is the impact of climate change and weather patterns on the farmers' income, because a very large section of population is dependent on that. So that's why Dr. J.V. Sharma sir was saying that agroforestry or tree-based economy should be followed, which gives some, you can say, risk coverage for the farmers. They have trees to fall back. And degraded landscape restoration is one area where we all are working, and it requires a lot of efforts, because soils, because of poor land use practices, they have become poorer, and they have to be brought back. There are policy and legal issues also, because if certain action is to be continued for long, it has to be support from the policy and legal angle. And we all know that people's aspirations are there for decent lifestyle, and it has to be merged with the ecological imperatives. So we all should be conscious of our footprints or imprints on the environment. So this is from the beginning, because we have to balance between the need and greed, which is our Rashtrapita Mahatma Gandhi has said that one has to distinguish, and they should be followed. In fact, India becoming now the most populous nation, we have more responsibility. So our cities, basically, they will be center, the urbanization will be increasing. So there we have to find solution. How? Because land will remain the same. How we make best use of natural solutions in urban environment, that will help us sustaining. And like some participant was asking that how trees are cut in the Bangalore and some cities, because they are not cutting for themselves, they are cutting for the citizens. They want faster reaching to their home. If you are stuck in traffic jam, you need good transport system. And it doesn't come out of a blue. You have to make efforts. You have to balance between, if you are cutting few trees, it is painful, but you have no option. Either you have your time spent on the road should be minimized, and likewise many things are there. It is our collective action which puts pressure on the forest. Like one conference I was addressing, so everyone, like here, say 500 persons are there in a large conference. They have to go back to airport and somewhere. Everybody would like that he reaches the airport early. There should not be any traffic light. Why should there are not flyover? If you need flyover, you need motor vehicles, you need steel, you need power, electricity, because we are sitting in the AC environment. From where this electricity will come? It will come from the coal. If mining is there, some forest will come, because forests are basically the mineral rich areas. Steel you require for railways, you require for building, you require for highways. So mining of iron ore is not unnecessary. It has to be done if it is meeting our requirement. So any action, if we are leaving some water here, the water is coming from some TERI or somewhere. So this is because one dam has to be created for meeting our requirement, our daily needs of water. The canals have to be laid, these power lines, power transmission line, power stations have to build up. So everything we have to look at the larger picture, and our own small footprints are responsible for that. It is not forest department. We cannot, and we will never be able to protect forests unless the society comes with us. And it is collective efforts. If somewhere destruction of forest, loss of forest, not destruction, loss of forest is there, we have to compensate by raising somewhere. That's what I initially made my remarks, that one of the most successful legislation in environment preservation is Forest Conservation Act and this Compensatory Afforestation Fund Act. At least we are trying our best to compensate loss of trees and forests, and it takes time. You can't say suddenly itne ped kate the wo lage nahi hai. You have cut down so much tree, because it takes time. You see, it takes 10 years, 20 years, 30 years to have a mature tree. So it needs effort. Don't be panicked, don't be negative. We are working very hard. You all should also join with in whatever capacity you can. It is not you have to be in this government, you have to be outside that. As a responsible citizen, everybody can come together. So the solutions we are not here to give you. Have positivity, have belief in your approaches, yourself, and we will certainly overcome these challenges. The global community is now one. If we are not so different, because if something happens in any country or region, it will impact the entire world. So we are very much united in our fight for, you can say, environmental sustainability, our goal of environmental sustainability. So I think I should end here, and we have to find solutions ourselves and try to work together. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
On behalf of TERI, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all our esteemed guests. A sincere thanks to the chairs of the panel discussion who handled the event throughout. I thank all the members of the panel who made the event a memorable one through their valuable inputs. I would also like to thank all of you present online for taking the time to be with us today and helping us make this event a grand success. Thank you all, and I hope you have a great evening ahead. Now, I request all the guests to kindly proceed towards Stein Auditorium for the plenary sessions. Thank you.